Deep in the ancient forests of Britain and Ireland, before stone churches rose and Roman legions marched, there stood trees that were more than wood and leaf. These were the sacred oaks, giants whose branches reached toward the heavens, while their roots plunged into the other world itself. To stand beneath their canopy was to stand at the intersection of all existence, where gods walked, where wisdom flowed like sap, and where the Druids learned to read the language of the cosmos written in bark and branch. This is the story of beings that the ancient Celts believed held the very fabric of reality together. Trees so powerful that to destroy one was to shatter a kingdom, so sacred that kings were crowned beneath their boughs. The oak groves were living temples, breathing libraries, and cosmic doorways all at once. What did the Druids truly know? What wisdom did they claim to draw from these silent giants? Let's step into the shadows of that ancient forest and discover what was believed to grow there. The very word Druid may unlock our first mystery. While modern scholars debate its precise origins, one of the most compelling interpretations connects it directly to the oak tree itself. The Old Irish word dare and the Welsh derv both mean oak, likely derived from the Proto-Celtic daru or derwa, words that echo through the ancient European languages like whispers through leaves. When combined with the Indo-European root wid, meaning to know or to see, we arrive at a translation that captures the essence of Druidic practice, one with knowledge of the oak, or wise person of the oak. Why the oak specifically, in the worldview of the ancient Celts? To know the oak was to know all trees, and to know all trees was to understand the fundamental architecture of existence itself. The oak wasn't chosen arbitrarily. It was recognized as possessing unique qualities that marked it as the king of the forest. Its deep roots penetrated as far into the underworld as its branches soared toward the sky, creating a living bridge between realms. Its wood was stronger and more enduring than almost any other, capable of withstanding centuries without decay. Its acorns provided sustenance to both humans and animals, supporting entire ecosystems through lean winter months. And perhaps most significantly, the oak attracted lightning with a frequency that ancient observers couldn't have missed. This connection to thunder and lightning wasn't merely noted. It was considered profoundly sacred. The oak tree featured in the pantheons of numerous Indo-European cultures, always associated with their most powerful gods. The Irish god, Dagda, father of the Tuatha De Danann, the Celtic thunder deity Tyrannus, the Greek Zeus, the Roman Jupiter, the Norse Thor, all these supreme gods claimed the oak as their own. When Roman historians like Maximus of Tyre wrote that the Celts worshipped Zeus as a tall oak tree, they were recognizing this fundamental association. The oak, frequently struck by lightning, yet continuing to thrive and even flourish after such strikes, became a symbol of divine power, flowing directly from the heavens into the earth, of the gods' favor made manifest in wood and branch. Celtic mythology took this reverence even further. According to Irish tradition, there existed a tree called Eo Mugna, a name that confusingly means yew, yet describes what was clearly an oak of supernatural proportions. This wasn't merely a large tree. Eo Mugna was a cosmic entity, one of the 5 sacred trees believed to protect all of Ireland. Ancient poems preserved in medieval manuscripts describe it reaching 300 cubits in height, nearly 500 feet tall, with a girth of 30 cubits, its shadow stretching 1,000 cubits across the land. It could shelter 900 warriors, along with 1,040 more, numbers that push this tree beyond the merely physical into the realm of the mythological, suggesting it was a tree that existed simultaneously in the physical world and the realm of myth. What made Eo Mugna truly extraordinary, however, wasn't just its impossible size. This miraculous oak bore 3 different types of fruit simultaneously: apples, acorns, and hazelnuts. Each of these held profound symbolic significance in Celtic tradition: the apple of immortality and the other world, the acorn of sustenance and strength, the hazelnut of wisdom and inspiration. Eo Mugna wasn't just a tree, it was a living embodiment of every form of nourishment the cosmos could provide, physical and spiritual alike. To sit beneath its branches was to have access to all the gifts the universe could bestow. And its roots? They didn't merely penetrate the soil. Medieval Irish texts claimed that Eo Mugna's roots extended all the way to Conla's well in the other world, that mysterious source from which the River Shannon itself was said to spring. The tree stood as guardian over the font of all wisdom, connecting the manifest world of Ireland to the invisible realm where knowledge flowed like water. When the ancients looked at Eo Mugna, whether it was a real tree embellished by myth or a purely mythological construct, they saw a vertical axis connecting heaven, earth, and underworld, with wisdom flowing through its trunk like lifeblood, accessible to those who knew how to tap into its power. The Druids didn't build stone temples. They had no need for dead architecture when living cathedrals grew all around them. Their churches were the oak groves themselves, sacred precincts where the trees formed pillars holding up the sky, their branches creating vaulted ceilings through which sunlight filtered in patterns that shifted with the seasons and the hours. These sacred spaces, called nemeton, survive in place, names scattered across the former Celtic world. Linguistic fossils marking where the divine once walked openly among mortals. The most famous of these, described by the 1st century geographer Strabo, was Druidic, literally oak grove sanctuary, a name that combines the words for oak and sacred space into a single concept. Druidic stood in Galatia, in what is now central Turkey, where Celtic tribes called the Galatians had migrated and established kingdoms far from their Western European homeland. Strabo tells us this sacred grove was filled with oaks, and here the 3 Galatian tribes would gather for their most important councils, their most solemn judgments, their most sacred rites. The Druids would preside over these gatherings, making decisions on disputes that could mean life or death, conducting the rituals that bound the community together and connected them to the gods. The presence of Druidic, so far from the Celtic heartlands in Western Europe, demonstrates how fundamental oak groves were to Celtic religious practice. Wherever the Celts went, they sought out the oaks, recognizing in these trees the proper places for encountering the divine. But what actually happened in these groves when the Druids gathered beneath the ancient oaks? Much of what we think we know comes from a single controversial passage written by Pliny the Elder in his Natural History, composed in the 1st century A.D. Pliny describes a ceremony so vivid and specific that it has shaped our imagination of Druidic practice ever since, even though we must approach his account with appropriate skepticism. He was, after all, a Roman observer describing the practices of a conquered people, and his account may contain elements of Roman imagination or misunderstanding, alongside genuine observation. According to Pliny, the Druids considered nothing more sacred than mistletoe, that peculiar parasitic plant that grows on various trees, but only rarely on the oak. When mistletoe was discovered growing on an oak, it was treated as a sign of divine favor, perhaps even placed there by the gods themselves during a lightning strike. The Celts believed that oak struck by lightning became especially sacred, and mistletoe growing on such a tree represented the physical manifestation of divine power, a gift from the thunder gods themselves. The harvesting of this precious plant was conducted with elaborate ritual precision on the 6th day of the moon, a waxing crescent, a time of growing power and potential. White-robed Druids would gather at the base of the sacred oak. As the appointed time approached, one would climb into its branches carrying a golden sickle, gold being incorruptible and sacred, appropriate for cutting what the Celts considered the most magical of all plants. Beneath the tree, attendants held a white cloth stretched between them to catch the falling mistletoe, ensuring it never touched the ground and thus preserved its power intact. The white cloth itself held significance, white being the color of purity and the other world in Celtic symbolism. Once the mistletoe was harvested and safely caught, 2 white bulls were sacrificed beneath the tree, their blood presumably offered to the gods as thanks for this precious gift. Pliny claims the mistletoe was then used to prepare cures for infertility and as an antidote to all poisons, a universal remedy, a panacea that could heal any ailment. Modern scholars debate how much of this account is accurate observation and how much is Roman imagination or misunderstanding. Miranda Aldhouse Green, a leading expert on Celtic religion, has argued persuasively that, while Pliny is our only source for this specific ceremony, the individual elements he describes, oak trees, mistletoe, ritual feasting, lunar timing, and bull sacrifice, all appear in other reliable accounts of Celtic religion from various sources and periods. The overall picture, if not every specific detail, likely reflects genuine Druidic practice, a real ceremony that Pliny witnessed or heard described accurately. The image of the white-robed Druid with golden sickle has become the archetypal representation of Celtic priesthood. It captures something essential about the Druidic relationship with trees. These weren't objects to be used but sacred beings approached with reverence and proper protocol. Oak groves have left their mark on the landscape. Even after the trees vanished, Derry takes its name from Dwar Calgaich, meaning Calgach's oak grove. When Saint Columcille established his monastery there in the 6th century, he did something remarkable. He burned down the town and king's fort to sanctify the ground, but ordered the oak grove protected at all costs. Columcille loved these oaks so intensely, he built his oratory facing north-south rather than the traditional Christian east-west, simply so no tree would be disturbed. Later in life on Iona, he declared that, although he feared death and hell, the sound of an axe in Derry frightened him more. Other place names preserve similar memories. Duro from Daru, Plain of the Oaks. Kildare from Sildara, Church of the Oak. In ancient Ireland, certain trees became protectors of entire kingdoms. These were the Bile, sacred tree, also called Fidnimd, god tree. They stood at the center of tribal territories as living symbols of sovereignty and spiritual power. 5 trees protected not just kingdoms, but all of Ireland. Medieval Dinsentious texts preserve poems about them. Eo Mugna, that miraculous oak at Ballagmoon in Kildare. Bile Torton, the ash of Tortu at Ard Brecon near Navan. Crabe Dythe, another ash at Farbill, Westmeath. Crabe Uisnig, the ash of Uisnich on the hill believed to be Ireland's center. And Ao Rosa, the yew of Ross at Leland in Carlow. The medieval sources treated these as having personalities, histories, agency. They were the sons of the tree of knowledge. When they fell, it was treated as nationally significant, comparable to a high king's death. All 5 guardian trees fell during the mid-7th century, but the destruction of sacred trees wasn't always nature's work. Because these trees embodied kingdoms' power and well-being, they became prime targets in the vicious cycles of intertribal warfare that characterized medieval Ireland. To demoralize and spiritually defeat an enemy, you didn't merely raid their cattle or burn their dwellings. You struck at the very heart of their cosmic connection by cutting down their sacred tree. This was understood not as simple vandalism or even just psychological warfare, but as a strike against the spiritual power that sustained the kingdom itself, severing the bond between the people and the cosmic forces that gave them legitimacy and protection. In the 11th century, the O'Loughlyns, who had sworn fealty to the infamous O'Neills, invaded Ulster and hewed the enemy's tree, Crabe Tulcha, from its very roots, an act of profound violation that went beyond military conquest to spiritual annihilation. 12 years later, the Ulster men took their revenge in a way that escalated the sacrilege even further. They didn't merely cut down a single tree but raided O'Neill territory and destroyed the entire sacred grove of Tulach Och, the very place where O'Neill kings were crowned, where oaths were sworn, where the connection between sovereignty and the land was ritually maintained. The O'Neills responded to this outrage by seizing 3,000 head of cattle from the raiders, a staggering price that indicates just how valuable those trees were considered to be, how profound the loss of the sacred grove registered in the cultural consciousness. In 1099, the Senel Neogan defeated the Ulaid in battle and reportedly destroyed one of their sacred trees as the ultimate sign of dominance. The 12th century saw the cherished red birch of the Ui Fiatra Aidni of Galway destroyed by enemies. The medieval annals record these tree destructions with the same gravity and detail they accord to battles and royal deaths, making clear that the felling of a sacred tree was an event of national importance, a catastrophe that reverberated through the spiritual as well as the political landscape. The legal systems of medieval Ireland reflected this profound importance of trees with remarkable specificity. The 8th century legal tract Bretha Cumaith Chesa, the laws of the neighborhood, classified trees into hierarchical categories with specific penalties for damaging each type, creating a system of arboreal law that treated trees as members of the community with their own rights and protections. At the top of this hierarchy were the 7 nobles of the wood: oak, hazel, holly, yew, ash, pine, and apple. The oak was listed first for its acorns and its dignity, a phrase that captures both the practical value of the tree and its spiritual importance. To destroy one of these noble trees without cause carried fines equivalent to injuring or killing a chieftain, making clear that the laws recognized trees weren't mere property in the modern sense, but beings whose welfare was intimately tied to the welfare of the people. The roots of the sacred oaks didn't merely anchor them in soil, they reached down into the other world itself. The most famous wellspring was Conla's Well, also called the Well of Segais, possibly identical to Nectan's well. The well was surrounded by 9 hazel trees, the hazels of wisdom bearing the nuts of inspiration. When these nuts ripened, they fell into the water below, creating bubbles of mystical inspiration. In the well swam salmon consuming the fallen nuts, becoming repositories of all knowledge and wisdom in the world. The number of bright spots on a salmon's back indicated how many wisdom nuts it had eaten. And if a human ate one of these salmon, they received all that accumulated wisdom. This happened to Fionn mac Cumhaill. The poet Finn Isis spent 7 years trying to catch the salmon of knowledge. He knew the prophecy: whoever first ate this salmon would gain all the wisdom of the world. Finally, he caught the fish and instructed his apprentice, Fionn, to cook it, but not eat any. Fionn obeyed, but in turning it, he burned his thumb on the hot skin. Instinctively, he put his thumb in his mouth and received all the knowledge the salmon contained. From that point forward, whenever Fionn needed hidden knowledge, he would suck on that thumb. The Well of Segais, whose name derives from a word meaning forest, was said to be the source of the river Boyne. Here, we encounter the myth of Boann. Boann was the wife of Nectan, a god who possessed the well. Only Nectan and 3 cupbearers were permitted to visit the well. It was forbidden to all others. But Boann, desiring wisdom, approached the well despite the prohibition. Whatever her transgression, the well responded not with wisdom but violence. The waters rose up, pursuing her, and mutilated her. 1 eye, 1 thigh, and 1 arm were destroyed. She fled, and the waters followed, carving out the course of the river Boyne. Her body washed ashore, and she became the river itself. An almost identical story is told about Sinan and Conla's well. Sinan, granddaughter of the sea god Lir, sought the well's wisdom. Again, something in her approach violated sacred protocols. The well rose up and drowned her, her body washing ashore where it gave its name to the river Shannon. These aren't comfortable stories about benevolent nature. They're warnings about the price of wisdom and the dangers of seeking knowledge from sacred sources without proper preparation. The wells guarded by hazel trees represented genuine cosmic forces that could illuminate or destroy. The Druids, one assumes, knew the proper protocols for safely accessing this wisdom. Yet, the promise of that wisdom remained irresistible. The hazels became symbols of knowledge, inspiration, and poetic gift. Hazel wands were carried by messengers as badges of office. Poets considered hazelwood sacred, inappropriate for firewood. Druids used staffs of hazel, and divination rods for finding underground water were traditionally cut from hazel, a practical echo of the mythological connection between hazel trees and hidden wells. The Druids famously rejected writing, preserving knowledge through prodigious memory and oral transmission. Yet, one form of written communication seems to have been acceptable: a script so intimately connected to trees that the letters themselves were named after them. This was Ogham, an alphabet that may be the closest thing we have to a physical artifact of Druidic wisdom. Ogham consists of 20 characters, later expanded to 25, each represented by straight lines carved across or along a central stem line. While approximately 400 Ogham stone monuments survive, primarily in southern Ireland, The system was likely first used on wooden staffs that time has not preserved. Each of the 20 original letters was associated with a tree or plant. The first letter, Baith, corresponds to the birch tree. Luis represents the rowan, Fearn the alder, Sail the willow, Neon the ash. The seventh letter, Dwyr, is the oak itself. The associations continue through hazel, apple, ivy, and others. But here, we must tread carefully, because Ogham has become one of the most misrepresented aspects of Celtic tradition. Much of what's published about Ogham as a tree alphabet derives from Robert Graves' 1948 work, The White Goddess. Graves proposed an elaborate theory that Ogham encoded ancient goddess-worshipping mysteries, functioned as a 13-month lunar calendar, and that Druids used it to preserve secret knowledge in code. The problem is that most of Graves's theories don't survive scholarly scrutiny. He based his lunar calendar on a mistranslation. In reality, the Ogham alphabet contains 15 consonants, not 13, destroying the calendar theory. Graves himself later admitted much of his work was speculative. Yet the White Goddess became enormously influential, and many contemporary writers continue to present Graves's inventions as ancient fact. What can we actually say about Ogham and trees? Medieval Irish manuscripts like the Book of Ballymote associate tree names with the letters through elaborate kennings. Scholars argue that only about 8 letters definitively refer to trees, while others may reference plants or objects. Researcher Neil MacCoytier has proposed reinterpretations that could give us a more complete tree list. The debate continues. What seems clear is that trees provided one important mnemonic framework for remembering the Ogham letters. The Druids may have used Ogham for marking ownership, creating memorials, or recording short messages. Some believe it was used for divination. The tale, Tokmark Etain, mentions the Druid Dalan taking 4 wands of yew and writing Ogham letters upon them, then using them for divination, though the text doesn't explain how. What Ogham definitely wasn't was a system for recording lengthy texts. In the Druidic worldview, knowledge was living. It existed in memory, in oral transmission, in the relationship between teacher and student. To fix it in written form risked killing it, turning dynamic wisdom into dead characters. Ogham occupied a liminal space, not quite full writing, not quite purely oral. To understand why trees, particularly oaks, held such a central place in Celtic mythology, we must think past modern categories that separate the religious from the natural. The Celts didn't experience trees as symbols of something else. Trees were themselves, beings with their own power, wisdom, and agency, whose existence was fundamental to the cosmos functioning. The ash tree, considered the queen of the forest, formed part of the sacred trinity with the oak and the hawthorn. Ash wood was believed to protect against fairies. In Scottish tradition, children received ash sap as medicine and protection against witchcraft. Ash seed pods were used for divination. The wood was prized for making spears, staffs, and wands. A druid's wand made from ash, discovered on Anglesey and dated to the early 1st century CE, provides rare physical evidence. In Irish mythology, 3 of the 5 great guardian trees were ashes: Bile Torton, Craib Dythe, and Craib Uisnig. Their prominence suggests ash possessed unique qualities for magical and protective purposes. The yew carried darker symbolism. Yew trees are among the longest-lived organisms on Earth. Some specimens alive today are believed to be 5,000 years old. The ancient yew at St. Degane's Church in Langernew has a particularly unsettling legend. Every Halloween, a voice from the tree names each person in the locality who will die in the coming year. One skeptic, Sion ap Robert, waited beneath the tree to prove it was superstition. He heard his own name called and died within the year. The yew's association with death wasn't arbitrary. All parts except the fleshy covering of its berries are highly toxic. Yet the yew also demonstrated remarkable regenerative properties. Its drooping branches, when in prolonged contact with the ground, could take root and form new trunks, supporting the main tree even as its ancient core rotted. This combination of toxicity and renewal made the yew sacred to concepts of death and rebirth, transformation and eternity. Welsh mythology preserves remarkable tree stories. In the Math Fab Mythonwy, the sorcerers Gwydion and Math create a woman named Blodeuwedd from the blossoms of oak, broom, and meadowsweet. She's literally made from flowers, including oak flowers, a being of wood and petal given human form. Later, when the hero Lugh Law Gyffes is attacked, he transforms into an eagle and takes refuge in a magical oak tree, demonstrating the oak's role as protector and place of transformation. The concept of the Tree of Life, an axis mundi connecting the three worlds, appears throughout Celtic tradition. This cosmic tree had its roots in the underworld realm of the ancestors, its trunk in the middle world where humans lived, and its branches reaching into the upper realm of the gods. To climb such a tree, whether physically or in shamanic vision, was to travel between the worlds. Medieval Welsh poetry contains mysterious references to trees. The poem Cad Godo, the Battle of the Trees, describes an enigmatic conflict where trees are animated and fight as warriors. While scholars debate what the poem means, its very existence shows that trees remained powerful enough symbols to structure entire mythological narratives. What united these traditions was a fundamental understanding. Trees were not passive objects, but active participants in the web of existence. They connected earth to sky, drew sustenance from the invisible world, and made that hidden nourishment available to those who knew how to receive it. A druid sitting beneath an oak wasn't seeking metaphorical inspiration. They were engaged in genuine exchange with a being that possessed its own form of consciousness and wisdom. When Roman legions finally subdued the Druids' last strongholds in the 1st century CE, and when Christianity gradually transformed Celtic lands, the sacred groves fell silent. The great guardian trees eventually died or were cut down. The wells where wisdom once bubbled up fell out of use or were Christianized. The Druids themselves vanished, their oral traditions fragmenting or transforming beyond recognition. Yet, something persisted. Walk through Ireland or Wales or Scotland today, and the landscape itself remembers. Place names preserve what human memory has forgotten. Every Derry, every Durrow, every Kildare marks where an oak grove once stood sacred. The yew trees in ancient churchyards, often predating the churches themselves, suggest Christians deliberately built on sites already marked as holy. St. Columcille's devotion to his oak grove wasn't an aberration. Again and again, Christian saints demonstrated respect for sacred trees that bordered on pagan reverence. The folklore that survived contains fragments of that older knowledge. The practice of knocking on wood to ward off bad luck may trace back to Celtic custom of knocking on tree trunks to summon protective spirits within, or to thank the trees for shelter. The Christmas custom of bringing evergreens indoors, the pagan associations of mistletoe, the tradition of walking around certain trees to make wishes. All these may be echoes of a time when trees weren't decorations but doorways to divine power. Modern environmental consciousness has given these old beliefs new relevance. When we speak about forests as the lungs of the planet, about the interconnected root systems through which trees share nutrients and warnings, about the wisdom of indigenous cultures that revered rather than exploited their forests, we're circling back, however unknowingly, to insights the Druids might have recognized. The Celtic understanding that we are part of nature rather than separate from it, that trees are beings deserving of respect and even legal rights, that the health of the land and the health of its people are inseparable. These weren't primitive superstitions but profound ecological and spiritual truths. The sacred oaks teach us still, if we're willing to listen. They remind us that wisdom isn't found only in books, but in the living world itself. They show us that what we call mythology was once someone's lived cosmology, their way of organizing and understanding a world far stranger and more numinous than our flattened modern landscape. They invite us to remember that knowledge isn't just information to be stored, but a living relationship to be cultivated, and that some forms of wisdom can only be accessed by standing in the right place at the right time, with the proper reverence, beneath branches that have sheltered seekers for millennia. The groves are gone, but trees still grow. The Druids have passed, but their insights endure encoded in story, carved in stone, preserved in the names of places where the land itself won't let us forget. What was believed about these sacred oaks? that they connected worlds, that they held wisdom, that they deserved reverence. These beliefs shaped cultures that lasted for centuries, and perhaps, as we face our own crisis of disconnection from the natural world, we might find something worth remembering in the way ancient people stood before a tree and recognized in it a teacher, a guardian, a doorway to the divine. If this journey into the wisdom of the sacred oaks has resonated with you, help us keep exploring these forgotten mythologies by liking this video and subscribing to History Scrolls TV. There are countless other mysteries waiting in the roots of ancient stories, and we'll be there to uncover them, one legend at a time. Until then, may you find your own sacred grove, your own tree of wisdom wherever your path leads you.